what we found, and this is one of the first headlines, that is that we don't believe that any rollout of Copilot is necessary at the moment. And I'm going to focus more on the back office for the start of this conversation. So departments such as HR, finance, facilities, ESOL, student services. And if I give an example of that, we work with an institution, they've got about 150 back office staff. We would estimate around, well, we know that 20 of them would value using Copilot licenses. And just those 20 people, after the onboarding and license costs, it would provide a return of around £90,000 equivalent in saved time, which is incredibly around 6,500 hours a year. And we'll talk about how we get to those kind of numbers in a moment. So really significant. Those users, well, before I talk about those users, let's say what's happening now. Usually across colleges and schools, a handful of Copilot licenses, I should say, have been handed out, maybe 5 up to about 20. And some staff members have been asked to use it, play with it if you like, and let them know the value that they're receiving from it. And when you ask those people how it's going, I'm afraid you pretty much get the same answer each time, which is that they haven't really got around to using it, haven't really seen the value from it. And if that's you, or if you've heard that, then you are not alone. That is very much the normal response at the moment. And if that continues to happen, or if colleges or schools look at rolling out Copilot across departments, not only, I believe, would it be an overspend and a waste of money, but actually it puts additional stress on staff members where they're now supposed to find ways of using Copilot, or they're under pressure to show that they're getting value from it, when in fact, a lot of them don't need it. So let's dive into who does need it and why. The 3 areas that I'm going to focus on in order are Excel, Outlook, and then to some extent in Teams and transcription. So there's typically 2 ways that Excel is being used across the back office of educational institutions. The first is as a data repository, and the second is like a pseudo CRM, customer relationship management application. So let's take the first one. That was staff that are exporting information from different systems, finance, HR, those kind of things, and then analyzing it. And so Copilot, simply put, and Alex can do these things just as much better than me, but it's a buddy. It's like a ChatGPT style buddy sitting next to you, helping you to do formulas and data analysis, and just like repetition, updates and management of the data and the structure of it and the formatting and so on. And we find that to be very, very useful. So those people, and they're typically, Alex, spending 4 to 6 hours a day, some people doing these sorts of tasks in Excel.
Yes, that's right. In Excel, in Outlook, so there is a lot of places where there is a task that steal your valuable time that you can dedicate to
Mm.
something more important in your workday.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. And typically when we're working with education institutions, it's not about um, it's not about job losses. Let's just get to the point. A lot of time it's on fixed budget. However, there are departments we've spoken to who've been crying out saying we need an extra member of staff. And then when you look at it, you see that there's 40 plus hours that can be easily saved just from the 3 areas that we're going to discuss today, which is Excel, Outlook, and Teams using Copilot. So potentially there's just ways of reformatting the work that's done and not needing to add additional headcount, which is great for efficiency and saving money. For those, we see that as a really, really valuable tool for them, saving time in, I say mostly in formatting, but also in just quickly getting to the kind of analysis, like I say, formulas that need to be written. And who doesn't like a buddy sitting next to you in Excel? So the second version of people using Excel, it's got customer data in there, or could be apprenticeship data with clients, or partnership data and PR, suppliers. You get the idea, and they're in there alongside the usual information, contact details, and so on. But typically, when it's being used like a customer relationship management tool, you'll see next actions in there and notes and so on. And if you're going to do that, it's obviously not as good as a CRM tool. And something like even like Microsoft Lists would be a step up from that, let alone Microsoft CRM. but if you are doing that, then it becomes very useful for extracting the next actions and updates. So producing almost reports, if you like, for colleagues or superiors in terms of what's happening and the state of play. And then, as I say, formatting again. We've seen, I think if you take apprenticeships or something like that, the need to update, 10 or 20 different records at the same time with the same update. So you see staff members going one at a time, one at a time, one at a time, which just wastes time, but also, who wants to spend their day updating the same details across 20 lines, looking for it in a spreadsheet. So there's Copilot. You just, in natural language, can explain what you need. I need these records, these types of records in this area or at this stage to have this particular update. You click it once, it's done. And then, as I say, if you want to then share the next actions or say, what are all the actions I need to do today? You could get that very easily with Copilot. It would list those out for you. Actually, Alex, it could even create those tasks for you, couldn't it? Directly thinking about it. Put it,
Yes, that's right.
yeah, which leads us beautifully on to Outlook. And I'll never forget my good friend Kurt Hintz, who's down at Petrock College now. And I said, "Oh, I don't need Copilot for email." And he said, "Yeah, you don't get 200 emails a day, do you, Richard?" And I said, "I don't get 200 a day." He said, "You might have a different view if you got 200." Now, not that many of us would have 200 emails that we have to physically read and deal with. A lot of the time, that's sort of non-essential information coming through. But having said that, Alex, a lot of departments do have shared inboxes, don't they?
Yes, they do. So they have both shared inboxes and their own personal emails. So just imagine going through tens and hundreds of emails on daily or weekly basis, depending on the department. It can be a really time saver to have an assistant such as Copilot to summarize, to prioritize your emails, or even help you draft replies based on the previous threads.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we've seen departments where there's one inbox and a lot of different kinds of emails land in there. Some of them are just marketing or sales emails. Some of them, it's very prescriptive. How do I, where is the sort of messages? Can be things like leave and so on that have the same questions over and over again. Actually, we could maybe if we've got time, we could touch on chatbots today, Alex, as well. But we'll see how we do for time, given that we had a slightly late start. And so yeah, so again, it's sitting there as a buddy for you, summarizing emails, helping to construct emails. And we're not advocates of using AI to write important emails, but if you are, if it's just a transactional email, an operational email, you just need to write simply and quickly and professionally as fast as possible. And ChatGPT, as it is now with Copilot, does that very, very well. And so then, as I mentioned before, creating tasks, calendar invites, beautiful for that. You could say create a calendar invite based on the time that we've agreed in this email for everybody that's on the thread. And then one click, you've got the calendar set up. And then those tasks and reminders can go out through the Microsoft ecosystem into, Teams and Project or whatever else is needed. And it connects it up quite beautifully. So, yeah, anybody with a big inbox or trying to manage very different emails, we would say absolutely, let's get them Copilot. So that's our well, two and a half groups so far, isn't it? The Excel users, those that are analyzing data or those that are managing customer data, and then those with a lot of time spent in inboxes. And then the third group would be those. Now, this is an interesting one, isn't it, Alex? Talk about transcription and Teams meetings.
Yes, because usually people have physical meetings or virtual meetings, but they take their own notes. We usually scribble something down, but as soon as meeting finishes, it's perfectly natural that we don't remember everything that was discussed at call. So, for example, if you have a transcript, you can have AI summary, you can have action items, next steps, you can revert to some sections that are really important to you, and then move on with your day with clarity in your mind, what I need to do and who I need to talk to and everything else.
Mm.
So that's huge relief
Mm.
for your mental health, definitely.
Yeah, and I said it's an interesting one because like you could say to me, well, Richard, doesn't that mean that everybody needs a Copilot license? And there's a little bit more debate to be had here for sure. So yes and no. Firstly, I do think that all meetings should be transcribed because I think there's so much that can be done with those transcriptions. And I'll pause here just to say, what can we do with those transcriptions? So we've had a meeting, could be an external meeting, could be internal, could be a conference that you've been to, could be a meeting with a supplier. But now we have the opportunity to have the raw transcript for all those meetings. I'll wait up, Richard. What about the physical meetings? I thought you'd never ask. Well, there's solutions for that as well. And so a non-Microsoft product, this is called, and it blurs it slightly, this is called a faux case that I bought recently for about £30. And this will provide around 300 minutes of transcription a month for free. And that's quite a cool little device because it stays on the disk and then it will load up on your phone locally using Bluetooth, which means that GDPR is not an issue as far as I can see because it's not going to the cloud. You just manage it on your own device and then obviously delete it when you don't need it. So we've been recommending to colleges and schools to update their policy to allow all leaders to record meetings. And that, for example, I mentioned conferences. You could put this down on the stage at a conference, come back, and it would summarize the day for your clients or for your social media. So much better than I went to a conference today. We had a great day, like we see on LinkedIn. There's no real details in there. Through to internal meetings, we had one group of people where it took an hour to write up the notes and an hour to provide the actions. But we understood that they were spending significant time before the meeting discussing, I will say, who was going to take the notes in the meeting. So there was an additional column of time needed on that. So beautiful to get the summaries and the action straight away. For those that have a Copilot account, obviously, not only do you get this, but it can create the tasks automatically and assign those, which is fantastic. And for others, I think a conversation is needed about whether you want to use some of the third-party tools. We see Read in this meeting. You've got Otter, you've got Fireflies, and I think decisions need to be taken because they are not GDPR compliant. They're not sitting within your technology stack, but there's huge value. Certainly we use Fireflies constantly, but it depends on the kinds of meetings. So I think, as I say, more discussion needed. But the difference between trying to get updates from team meetings through to using something like a transcription tool is night and day for making sure that all things are captured and tasks assigned. And it doesn't just stop there. I think it's quite fun. We had one team where around 50% of the team, about 15 in the team, about 50% of them couldn't physically make the meeting every week for good reasons. They were on site, they were unavailable. It was that kind of team. And so they do their best to capture the notes and send them to them and record the meeting. But, do you really want to listen to an hour and a half meeting at your desk, sitting there listening to people having small talk as well as discussing the bigger things? Possibly, or that might just end up slipping down your to-do list in all reality. So, yes, of course, they could be sent the summaries, but it gets much more interesting than that. And we've been using tools like HeyGen, which is the avatar-based video tool. So last time we did this briefing, I put the transcript into ChatGPT. I asked it to write me a script, a 2-minute script. I plugged that into HeyGen, which is basically an avatar of me speaking. And then I was able to have my image do a briefing within a few moments of what we discussed. And then the famous Google Notebook LM. If you haven't checked out Notebook LM, have a look at that. We've been using this a lot. And so this is probably my favorite thing in the world right now is that team of 15 people. They could record their meeting, which would be transcribed. They could put the transcription I can put the whole document, in fact, into a Notebook LM and then ask it to summarize the meeting, making sure to be personal and raise specific points that matter and so on and so forth. And then a few moments later, you'll have probably around a 18-minute podcast with two hosts discussing what happened in the meeting. It's taken off like wildfire. The Google Notebook LM is so heavily used now across enterprise and education. It's phenomenal. And it's very, very listenable. I did a summary in Notebook LM of a report that we wrote for a college, and I put it on just to test it. and I couldn't stop listening to it. It was 28 minutes long. I listened to the whole thing. I found it thoroughly engaging and entertaining and relevant. And so again, it all starts with getting the transcription, and there's so much across 11 labs with voice, and then we've got Synthesia as well, haven't we? As HeyGen as video, and then Notebook LM for kind of personalized podcasts. And Notebook LM just keeps getting better and better. You'll soon, if you can't already, be able to interact with that. But I call it a podcast. It's kind of like that. And you'll be able to say, actually, tell me more about that, or I'd like to ask a question about that. And it becomes an interactive podcast. So watch this space. And there you are, a Google product thrown in for fun at the end of a Microsoft briefing. How about that? That definitely reminds us all that we are agnostic here at MKAI. So that's the state of play that we think for Copilot in education. In summary, a number of licenses are needed. Somewhere in the range of around 15% of the workforce outside of teaching, we think, will value a license right now. That's significantly less than a rollout and a much better use of time than sporadically asking people to have a play with it. Use cases across Excel, Outlook, and Teams, and some others that we can discuss with you if you've got particular ways of working. That's something that we do offer as an organization. We offer an extended analysis project. We've been doing quite a lot of these recently. And we're typically finding around 6+% savings in time that can be achieved across the workforce in colleges, just by using ready-made, ready-to-go AI tools.